I'm Kris Rivera, and I'm going to be showing you a little bit how to deploy a production Angular instance inside of Docker. A little bit about me. I am the DivvyCloud's front-end lead. DivvyCloud makes software to manage and ensure that your cloud infrastructure and cloud resources are always in compliance so that you don't make the news. Like a lot of Capital One area in here. So, sorry, I think there's an echo in here. Anyway, I've been working as a software developer for 12 years or over, I think. And I just love technology. I love video games. And of course, I love coding. And also D&D. Shout out Dungeon Master. I'm a player, so. Yeah. So let's dive in. So what we're going to go over is why are we using Docker? What does Docker give us? How we actually build an image, logging into Docker Hub, deploying that image to Docker Hub, and then running our image. So let's dive into why Docker. Well, Docker provides you isolated environments. That means that anything that you want to run will not intermingle with the host operating system unless you tell it to, unless you give it access. So it's a totally virtualized and containerized and isolated environment for you to do whatever you want. Running Docker containers is like running a very highly configurable service. So if you want to start like Apache, or if you want to start up Nginx or anything else of that ilk, then running Docker is something that you can use. A lot of people liken it to like VirtualBox, but without headless. But the thing with VirtualBox is it's running full-fledged operating systems intended for you to just do things in the OS. Docker is intended to run lightweight services, and then once they're done, they die, shut themselves off, and go away. The Docker CLI is amazing, and because of the Docker CLI, you can do a lot of script automation. You can do a ton of very powerful things with it. So it's just the Docker CLI is well documented, well maintained, and that's like the main way that most developers would use Docker. They have like a user interface or a GUI for it as well, but it's almost like doing Git on the command line versus using source tree or something. Both have their merits. I know, Nick. Both of them have their merits, but the CLI lets you do a lot of scripting and automation. And which leads me to CI/CD systems. They allow you, they basically always have hooks for Docker. Even if you think of Circle CI, they use Docker to run all of your builds. And you can even run Docker inside of a Docker container to do what you want to do. So it's very extendable. I'm pretty sure Travis and other Jenkins definitely lets you do Docker run commands inside of that runtime instance. So now we get to something that makes it a little more powerful too, is Docker Hub. Docker Hub is, think of it like NPM, where you can install packages and push them and pull them down. Docker Hub is no different in the sense that when you build Docker images, you can push those images up to Docker Hub, and then later on customers, clients can all pull them down. And that's actually how DivvyCloud, we deliver our software, is we build Docker images with our software with the current tag and version, and we just tell our customers, okay, flip the switch on a version number and pull it down. And they're like, all right, we're up, thanks. No painful process for upgrade. And finally, and I think I touched on this already, that Docker images are distributed like NPM packages. It's just build them, push them, tag them, pull them down. So I won't beat that one anymore. So how do we build a Docker image? Well, for us Angular developers specifically, I'm sure you recognize this source it's pretty familiar. You got your source, the root of the directory, and all the other files that go when you create a scaffolded Angular project, and you just create a Docker file. No extension, it's just Docker file, but VS Code and other programs recognize what Docker file is and give you the little Docker whale on the left side of that. So the first thing that we will do is we actually start with a from clause where we are pulling down a Node.js image that has, so you're pulling down a Docker image that's in Docker Hub that actually has Node.js of a certain version already built into it. Then we make commands to copy these Angular files because the Docker image needs to have access to these files. So the easiest way with a Docker image is to copy just the root of your content into the Docker image itself and then run the npm build commands. After we do this, we are going to make a Docker file into what's called a multi-stage Docker file, which means that we're going to do another from command that will then copy from the previous stage what's been built in the dist folder into our Nginx Docker image. And then finally we expose port 80. And so being that Nginx is the last thing, the last stage, that means Nginx, our web server, starts up when you run this container and it sheds the Node.js image before it. Now, and then of course we use the CLI commands to build the new image. So let's actually dive right into how this looks. So this is my Docker file. And so the very first thing, like I said, we're going to do a from keyword and do from whatever version of Node on on Docker Hub has all the different versions tagged in it. So it has some version of Ubuntu, some version of Linux, a light version, a stretch version, Jesse. They have a bunch of different, just whatever operating system suits your need, they have them all tagged with their version. And then we use the as Angular. That's going to be important later, but for right now, that's just saying that alias anything that's inside of this image from this point down as Angular. So then the next thing that we're going to do is we're going to copy basically the root. So the Docker file is at the root of our project. So when you add dot, that means that we're adding everything that's around the Docker file into a folder, var temp, inside of the Docker image. We then, simply to make it easy to be able to execute our npm commands inside of this container, or inside of this folder, we will change the working directory, which means that every command afterward will be executed from within the temp folder. And then finally, we build our Angular project. It's run the command, npm install, run npm run build, and with the -- prod flag. Now, many of you may think that I made a typo here, but that extra -- is necessary for adding additional aliases or additional attributes to your npm run commands. So -- prod comes after the first -- So now we're done, right? No, definitely not. So next, now that we have this built and it builds it out to the dist folder inside of the image, now we can move on to our second stage. And that's our web server stage, our server stage. So now we're going to pull from Nginx, the latest stable version, and that's going to start our second stage. So this image doesn't know anything about the prior part of the first stage. But now here's how we're going to make it know about it. We're going to use the -- from keyword, or from the copy keyword, we're going to use the -- from property, and we're saying from our Angular stage, copy var temp dist Docker Angular, because it builds it inside the dist folder by its project name. The project name is Docker Angular, into our static HTML folder, which is user share Nginx HTML. And like I said last time, we expose port 80, so that when we run this container, this is just the image, but when the image is run and we have a running container of this image, we want to be able to access it via port 80. So let's take a look at the whole file here, just run over it again. So this is what the entire contents of the Docker file look like. Again, we have our build stage, which is from Node at a certain version. We alias it as Angular. We add the source code with all the package JSON and everything else that's in that root of the directory. We change our working directory such that our subsequent commands, we just execute npm install, npm run build, -- prod, and then we move on to the second stage, which all we need to do is just copy what is in the dist folder into our static HTML folder and expose port 80. And the power behind this multi-stage Docker file is that, again, everything above this is gone. We're left with just whatever operating system Nginx image has and only the disk file. So we don't have any additional dev dependencies. It's the lightest weight possible that it could be. So now we want to actually build, like all we've done is written the Docker file. So how do we actually build this? Well, we're going to use the Docker CLI. And it's just Docker build. And I'm going to go over what this means. But so from within the directory, we're going to do Docker build. We're going to do -t to tag our build. And I'm putting KK Rivera because that's my username, or that's my repository where I'm putting this. And then / I'm naming it whatever I want, Docker-Angular, and then I'm tagging it with the latest version. I think if you drop the :latest, it automatically appends :latest, so the latest tag. And the dot just means from within this folder. So I'm still within the folder itself, and I've just built this image, and it stores it just like Git does, where you have your own local repository. You have your own local Docker repository as well, where your image gets committed to. So now that we've built our image, next thing we're going to do is actually log into Docker Hub. So it's very simple. Click the little whale at the top of your, if you're using a Mac, at the top bar or wherever else, and then sign in to it. It's very simple, and then you just authenticate with Docker Hub. You can also authenticate from the command line as well, but it's a little more friendly this way. But now, how do we deploy our image? Well, we're going to go right back to the CLI. And so we're just going to use the command docker push of the image and the tag version. So all that's doing, straightforward, is going to publish it straight to Docker Hub at your account. It gets published under your personal or company's Docker Hub account. We have people who have account access to our DivvyCloud Docker Hub account, and when we create a build, it automates. We have it built locally, and then we just push it right up. And then the image can be made public or private. If you're trying to distribute to your customers, obviously you want it to be public. But if you're doing something more internal, more personal, then you can make it private, and to whomever you grant access to it, you can give them access to that image. And now, how do we finally run this, right? Okay, it's all pushed up, it's all built, it's all good, but how do we actually run this? So what we're going to do is we're going to run a container from the image that our customers pull down from Docker Hub. And we just use the docker run command. So I'm going to break down this set of instructions here. So we have -d, which means that we're going to run it in detached mode, and it just means it runs in the background. Right, so then we provide a name. I just call it ngprod. Keep it simple. We expose -p is a little sometimes difficult to understand, but -p is saying, okay, this is my port, and on the right side. So I guess for you guys, on the right side, that 80 on the right of the colon is the Docker images port that was exposed. The line that we exposed, port 80. That's what's on the right side. On the left side is what your host computer, what your other clients or like on your network, what is visible. So I could change that to 120 or whatever I want. But to make it easy, I just map 80 to 80 so that I can access it via localhost for this. And then finally, the final part is KK Rivera / Docker Angular. That's just the name. And if you don't have that image already on your computer, then it's going to actually download it for you. All right, live coding demo with internet. What really could go wrong? Yeah. I am a daring man. Here we go. Let me increase the font size for you guys. Can everyone see that okay? A little more. Turn off the lights or something in here. Is it too dark? The screen is like. It's not that. It's okay. I actually don't. Sweet. All right. Cool atmosphere. All right. So the first thing that we're going to do, I'm going to show you how I don't have anything in here. If I grep for KK Rivera, you'll see no smoke and mirrors. There's no pre-built image. So we're really going dangerous here. So I did at least copy my command so that I don't have to think about this as much. So now is the docker build command. And again, we're telling it to tag it as /Docker Angular and then the latest tag. And right now it's just trying to send the actual image, context, and everything to Docker. So you see first stage from node. If I didn't have that already downloaded, then we would be sitting through a slightly longer download. So at least I pre-cached some things. But right now it's copying the source files from my hard drive to the Docker image. We set the working directory to var temp. That's step 3 out of 8. I don't think you guys can truly see that easily. And then we're running npm install, and now we're at the ng build prod. I did not think about this being so far down. I'm sorry about that. Let's shrink this up and bring it up higher. All right, can you guys see that better now? Cool. So we're actually, it's literally running the ng build prod command inside the Docker container, completely isolated from our host environment. So I don't even need to have Node installed. I don't have Node version 13.3.0 installed, but inside of the Docker container, it is. And then on step 6 out of 8, we then say, okay, let's grab Nginx, let's copy the dist that's from our inside of our Docker Angular folder, and then we expose port 80, and then it's finally done. So now if we do Docker images grep for KK Rivera, you see now in our local Docker repository, we have this new latest image, but it's nowhere yet. So what we're gonna do is, I'm already logged in, so I'm not gonna show you that, but I'm gonna do the docker push command, and that pushes the new layer, and if there's any updates to it, it just pushes new layers, so everything's built in layers, so it doesn't have to push the whole image every single time. And then it's up there. It's literally in Docker Hub. And now what I'm going to do is that I'm going to show you this first, that, not this screen. So we're going to see that at the top here, we are at localhost, and like there's no localhost running. And then secondly, what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to, let me grep for this again. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to delete what I just built so that I don't have a local copy of it. I just deleted it. So if we go back and grep for it again, it's not there, right? So now what I'm going to do finally is I'm going to do my docker run command, and I'm going to just the same command here, and we're going to pull it down from Docker Hub. Internet, don't fail me now. It says it couldn't find it locally. It pulled down everything, every layer that it didn't have, and now it's running. So if I do a docker ps, you can see that this is running at ngprod. The name of this container is ngprod. We are mapping localhost anything from port 80 to port 80 TCP, and it's running the Nginx service daemon. That's the thing that starts in the Nginx image. And now if we go back to Safari, we reload, we have our running production version Angular build inside of a Docker container. And just as easily, I can come back here and I can say docker stop, ngprod. It stopped it, it removed it, and I refresh and it's not there anymore. So let's go back to the slides here a moment. Thank goodness it started back at the slide that I wanted it to. So I'm going to send out these slides. I'll have these links to my GitHub page that has this repository, and as well, this is the Docker Hub link that has that, that simple image already pushed up, and that's it. Thank you.